Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, as always, Vasili, Gianarakos, my man. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Yariv. I'm excited for this one. It's the dead of summer, so just in terms of newsy topics for the Flyers, we
Yeah.
don't really have
Yeah, a little bit.
a lot to
Yeah.
go about, but we do have a fun episode today. We have a really great guest. We're excited to bring him on. We talked about him last week and for a couple of weeks leading up to this, so excited to bring him on and interview him. And I'll let you open it up, Yariv.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I think it should be a pretty interesting conversation. We're gonna tone the episode around him, and then like in the second half, we'll talk. Obviously, how we do interviews. We open up with the guest, and then we'll talk a little bit about that topic itself, and then we have some other topics we'll get to. But again, we're in the dead season, so it kind of is what it is, right? We're gonna do our best to fill the time. We don't usually have that problem. Before we get into our interview, I have to do the usual spiel. Just want to remind everybody listening to please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notifications to get notified when we release these episodes. And for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and give us a rating and a follow if you can. Again, that is the best way to support this show. And newly, what is the best way to support this show is hyping up the videos. We know some people have been doing it. I've had people reach out to me and tell me that, or to us. It's definitely helping us. So if you can hype our video, you can do it through the mobile app. Again, you go to the comments section on YouTube app, you swipe over to the right, and you have an option to hype 1 to 3 times a week. If you can give us one or more of those hypes, that would be amazing. It's definitely helping our show grow. So we'd really, really appreciate it if you guys could do that
Or I would say too, even just like the video, right? Like we put
at the
out this
simplest level.
we put this content out for free. We have a lot of episodes out for free. We don't make
So
very much money for this, so we would appreciate any support we can get because it helps grow the show. We get bigger, more people listen, so the more
100%.
eyeballs, the better
Well,
for
what
us.
I noticed is that each like has a score applied to it. A hype has like a 10x. So essentially, like a hype of a video is like liking our
Super
video like
valuable for us,
50
yeah.
times or whatever. I don't know the exact math, but you can see there's like a score attributed. So it's definitely been a humongous help for those who are doing it. And those who have not, it's okay. Like Vasily said, it's fine. But if you want to help us, that's a tremendous help to us and really doesn't require much effort. Also, to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak at Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Make sure to check out Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. It will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company and make sure you get the best claim possible. Again, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And also just want to give a brief shout out to our partner, sportspider.com. Guys, if you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, sportspider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as up to date on our Philadelphia Flyers or the NHL in general, make sure to check out sportspider.com. The link to them is both in the audio and video descriptions of this show. Again, that's sportspider.com. And always make sure to check out flyersnittygritty.com. All right, let's move on with the show. All right. Excited to introduce somebody that I've already brought up on the show already. Gave you guys a heads up that he was joining us. Former 6th overall pick of the Philadelphia Flyers. Legendary fighter, but more importantly, a damn good hockey player on top of that. I think you're a little cornered there, but Ben Wilson joins the show. Ben, thank you so much for joining Vasily and I. Looking forward to our conversation.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I'll be honest. So I did a little bit of research on you. Like I watched you on podcasts. You seem like a very forward man. Like you do not hesitate to say what's on your mind, and that seems to come with the attitude of the way you played on the ice as well.
You know what? Life's short, and you work hard, and other than that, you just want to make the best of things. So,
No, fair enough. So gotta start off by saying You have a book that you are advertising. I saw you're doing kind of a run as well of other podcasts. I've seen you on there and several other podcasts. You've been on our sister podcast, the O&B podcast, called Gloves Off, and I loved the tagline, mostly true stories from hockey, from my life in hockey. I got to ask you, why just mostly?
Oh, everything's about everyone's opinions and perspectives,
Oh,
and
okay.
when people want to nail down the definitive truth, it gets ridiculous. And there's actually a funny story in my book. I told a story, and this is where mostly true stories. I told a story about Gretzky. He was breaking the unbeatable record, 50 goals in 50 games, and could never be broken. Maurice Rocket Richard did it 200 years ago, and um, we're going in. He's played 38 games, and my story is he had 44 goals, so he's ahead of a goal a game, right?
Sure.
But he's still got 6 to go. We're good. He's not going to embarrass us, right? And they're up like 4-3, and he's already got 3 goals. And there's like 2 minutes left in the game, so we pulled the goaltender, right? You got it. You're down 1 goal, 2 minutes left. We pulled the goaltender. Boom, boom, boom. We press as hard as we can. The puck comes around. Hell, he's got a breakaway. He's going down, and he scores on an empty net. And I'm probably chasing him from behind. And, there's a picture of 99 scoring with me like 6 feet behind him, reaching out pathetically. And
Doing like this, a little like something like that.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, exactly. And just like, what was that ever going to do? But anyway, so they're up 2 goals, minute left, let's say, in the game. And so we come off the ice. Good try, you don't have anything, but oh well. And damn, whoever is on the ice on the Flyers, they scored. So now the score is like 5-4. What do you do with a minute left? You pull your goaltender. So I go back out on the ice, and we press as hard as we can. Boom, boom, boom. The puck squirts around the boards. Gretzky's got a breakaway, and I'm going back, and I'm chasing him like 6 feet behind him, and he scores in an empty net. So now they're up by 2 goals. We've held him to 5. We've held him he only got 5 goals that game, and
Only, yeah.
I come off the ice, and next thing is we score. We score, and I don't know, the score is 6-5. And so you pull your goaltender, you go back out. Now, he's got 49 goals. He's got 49 goals. And we go and we press as hard as we can. Boom, boom, boom. The puck comes around. Puck pops loose. He goes for a breakaway and scores. He scores 6 goals in 1 game. He scored 50 goals in 39 games. And there I am, chasing him 6 feet behind, not going to lay a glove on him. And so I say, I'm probably in the Hall of Fame, which is my picture chasing Gretzky as he scores his 50th goal. So Am I in the Hall of Fame is the chapter of my book. And I thought that was funny. So I told the story for 30 years. I only told like 2 stories. I didn't talk much about hockey. And then I said, I'm actually going to fact check something, right? I'm going to it'll blow up my story, mostly true stories of my life in hockey, but I'm going to fact, and I go check. And I've told the story. It's one of the 2 stories I've told my whole life. And I fact checked. He had 45 goals, not 44. So he only scored 5. So I feel a lot better. We held him to 5. And I wasn't even on the damn ice when they scored the last goal. So at first you say, thank God you're not embarrassed by him scoring all those goals on you. And I said, well, that was pretty much my only shot to be in the Hall of Fame. So after the fact checking, I figured, you know what? I don't need people fact checking everything that happened. I told that story so many times, it was absolutely true. And now here we are. What do you say? What do you say? One highlight of the game, I had a front row seat ticket to watch Gretzky break the unbreakable record.
That's amazing. Totally. I think that's part of human nature, right? That memory gets fuzzy, even if it's like a year or 2, but that is an unbelievable story. It must have been so impactful that you felt like you were on the ice at the time. And I assume that's one of the stories that's in your book, right? Yeah.
it's in the book. It's a little bit longer. There's no upside to that story. It only gets
Okay.
dumber and dumber and more embarrassing. But what the hell? I had to throw that in there because it's a tremendous accomplishment by Gretzky. It's out of this world. And you think you play Gretzky in the pregame scouting report, and the coach says, "Hey, let's watch Gretzky. Let's make sure he doesn't score." Never. Can I have a pen and paper and write that down? I never thought about that on
Right.
my own. And everyone's watching him, and he still scores those goals. And
You
it's
can think about it
unexplainable.
all you want with the player of that talent, but then when you try to do it on the ice itself, it's a whole different ball game, right? How does it feel on your end? Obviously, in the moment, like you don't want to be a part of that situation, but now looking back all those years later, is it a good thing? Would you say that you got to be and share the ice with Gretzky during that time?
Well, the end, he cleaned it up. Hell no, I don't like to be embarrassed like that. It was looking back, incredible to see him work his magic. And the incredible thing is, it's one thing if they think you're never going to score, they're covering someone else. Everyone focused on Gretzky. Let's not be surprised. And he's still scoring like crazy, assists like crazy, and everyone was gunning for him. Everyone was trying to stop him. He and I said in my book, I don't know what game he's playing, but he and Lemieux were not playing the same game as the rest of us. They were doing something that was just otherworldly. It was just different.
Yeah, I mean his records are still untouched, and it looks like nobody's even going to touch them, right? Like when you outscore everybody on pure assists, nobody can catch you. Yeah, you played in a special era. So I gotta ask you, you were drafted sixth overall, which is pretty big deal. Obviously, there were less teams at the time, but you didn't come in like you were known for fighting retrospectively, but obviously at the time, you were a high end young player. You were drafted sixth overall. Ken Linsman was taken right after you, also to the Flyers at seven, which I had to look that up, which is crazy draft the Flyers had. What did that feel like? Being a young kid and taking the jump up. We see it happen today publicly, like, interviews and all this stuff. But from your position, how did that feel? And then being chosen so high by the Flyers as well.
Well, it's this is what you work at for your whole life, and you agonize about, you fantasize about, you do everything. And to get into junior, there was a lot of guys way better than me, and to do a little value add, I fought like crazy to get into junior. And while I was there, you just keep trying to develop your other skills, and you know, and it slowly paid off. But going into your last year of junior, you're doing well. You think, you kind of get an idea of where you are, and you think it's coming together. But the night before, I had a dinner with Keith Allen, a couple other the brass at the of the Flyers, and you go to bed that night saying, shit can happen. You just don't know. And what happens if it all falls apart? You see guys tumble in the draft, and so I was there with my brother when I got drafted. I was at the draft, and they say your name and you still don't want to stand up just in case you imagine that in your head, right? You standing up and
Yeah.
cheering for yourself, and then, whoop, whoop, just kidding, just kidding. So it was an out of world experience, and you say, I've done it. And by the next day, you say, I got to go make the team. So, there's just, you climb up to the top of the biggest hill you can see. And then once you get there, now there's a bigger hill. And going with that is with the Flyers, I played my first exhibition game and for the Flyers. And the game went well for me. I scored a goal. And I said, I'm, without them saying it, I'm on the team. And I came in after the um, end of the game. I sat in my stall, and I sat there, and I could have taken a nap for about 200 years. And I said, it's all over. I've made it. I've done it. and now I'm just going to sleep. And I sat there for about 5 minutes. It might have been an hour, it might have been 2 minutes, I don't know. And then all of a sudden I said, I got to do this every night. And I never thought about that. The hill, that last hill was just trying to make the team. I never thought about what it's like to actually have to do it every night. And the other thing which you find out is this is an exhibition game where, there's some of the pros that they're not trying to absolutely kill themselves. This isn't Stanley Cup games for them. And then there's, the minor league guys or guys that won't be on the team. So the game's a little watered down. And I thought I had played, this Stanley Cup game type of thing. And then you find out what it's like to be a pro. You come to practice and you got to better work hard, all the time. You better ride the exercise bike. You better lift some weights, and you better be ready. And so it was turning pro was it was so multi-layered with so many things. And it all went great and all that, but a lot of agony and a lot of you climb to one hill to get to the next hill type of thing.
You talk about the toughness, Ben, like with going from junior to the NHL. How was that, would you say, for you, like making that jump in terms of actually playing in junior, then at the NHL level? Like, was it a direct, would you say, like just the actual like competition? Would you say the competition rose significantly?
When I first went to junior hockey, I was 16. And my first practice and scrimmage with the team trying out, I couldn't believe how fast the game was. It's like by the time the puck got to my stick, I should have already passed it. There was just no time. It was so fast, and then you get used to that. And you move in. But when I turned to the NHL again, I was shocked about how fast the game is. I remember on a center ice, the beginning of the game, the puck that we win the draw comes right back to you, and someone's on top of you in 2 seconds, and you better have read where you can pass the puck. There's no taking your time. It's just fast, and at first, I think you'll never really catch up. You're just sort of like hoping and grasping and swatting at the puck, just trying to get it somewhere else other than you. And then slowly, I was fortunate. I had Jimmy Watson, my team, was my defense partner, and to keep trying to settle you down and and he'd put me in a position to look good, type of thing. And then buy you time to get used to the game. If not, it's just it's all over the place,
Yeah.
and you're nowhere.
Let me ask you this, because that was a great setup that Vasili just had there. And I was just thinking as you were talking about the adjustment to the NHL, the speed and the pace. So you came into the NHL. I think a lot of people who have heard your name, they don't understand that you were actually a very good player, right? You came in as a rookie. You had 49 points in your rookie year. Then you had 34, but in 61 games. I assume some injuries there involved. And then the third year, you put up 63 points in 77 games, which is very impressive for a defenseman. That first 3 years, what was the adjustments that you made to adapt and to improve your game outside of maybe like the surface level stuff that we see, as like fans, we're like, get in better shape, adjust to the speed? Is there was it like a mental game? Because we watch it all the time with young guys. They come into the first year, they might have a good year, then they take a step back, and people kind of harp on them. We are a very growth mindset like podcast here, so we understand development is that it's not a straight rise in anything, right? It's a up and down pattern. What were those first 3 years like for you in the league?
Well, I think to catch up in junior to all the great players. My brothers and I, we skated 6 hours a day, virtually 12 months a year. Other guys are skating 2 hours a day, 9 months a year. Conditioning was never going to be a factor. And when we say we skated, we did flat out races every day for a while, and working on speed, a good rest and flat out, and just working stops and starts, just always working on your speed. That was off the table. Certainly from 19 when I turned pro, I think your body gets naturally stronger for a few years. Um, and I think it takes a little bit to pick up how the game is played. Um, and not only and by even through my whole career, I wish I did a better job at this. But there's a reason why the superstars are superstars, and the short answer is because they're superstars. And and when if you're open and you should have jumped ahead for the puck, they'll put the puck where you're supposed to be. And if you didn't jump, you look like an idiot. On the other hand, is when they're open, they want the puck. They want the puck flat. You might have to raise it over someone's stick or a couple of guys' stick. They want it flat. They want it hard, and they want it on their stick where they can handle it, not in their skates, not where they have to reach back for it. They want it, and that skill level. It's a little thing, but sort of like you go down on a 2-on-1 and whatever, and all of a sudden there's a great pass and it bounces in the guy's skate, and you say, "Oh, that was a nice try." Well, the top players don't want that, and they're ready to kill you. When it's time to score, they want the puck flat on their stick. And I actually put this in my book. I think it was really interesting. My first year, I got blessed. There used to be, if two guys one guy on each team went off, it'd be 4-on-4. And then a penalty, and there's a 4-on-3. And I would go out with Bobby Clark, Billy Barber, and Reggie Leach. And it was amazing because Leach and Barber were great players and they could handle the puck. Make no mistake. But they knew if they were handling the puck, they weren't getting open for their shot. So if you passed them the puck and they were ready to shoot, they passed it back to you. And Clark and I carried the puck up and got in position. And basically, my job was to get the puck to Billy Barber, Reggie Leach, when they're open, flat on their stick. And this is the great thing, which is crazy, but I love about goal scorers. If a guy's putting a stick right in your eyeball, but they're open, they want the puck. They don't want excuses. They want the puck. They don't care. They want the puck. And if they get the puck when they're open, they expect to score. Now, when I shoot, I count nice tries. Oh, that could have been. Oh, I hope, no, they want the puck and they don't want it a second early. They don't want it when they're covered. They don't want it a second late. They don't want it bouncing. They want a pristine puck, and they can shoot and it's, I don't want how to describe it, but scoring a goal is no joke to them. It's not, "Oh, I took a good shot, I hope it scores." And they wanted it in. And I saw Reggie Leach in practice one time, practicing his slap shot from where he scored all his goals. And he hit the post or the crossbar 10 out of 10 times because that's the corner he was going for. And he was mad as hell. Right? He was mad as hell. And, he needed it, half an inch down. And they all would have been, unstoppable shots. And but that's the way they were. So he asked me what the big transition was, to understand the skill level of the top guys, to understand the fine thing of what they can really do and when to get the puck and how they want it and all that stuff. It took a little while to catch on to, and because the nice tries, you want a nice try, they don't even want you out there. Go have a nice try in practice or with someone else. They wanted the puck. They were amazing like that. Amazing.
High level of excellence mindset. That was awesome. So I have a follow, kind of adjacent to that. So one thing that really bothers me, obviously, like, I'm a younger guy. I'm 39, but like I've seen the transition of hockey.
Oh, you look even younger than that.
I know, I get that a lot. But the transition over the past few years. I'm not sure if you're still watching hockey, like probably back in the day, but the whole talk today is, size isn't as big of a deal. You can be smaller. It's about pure speed. I don't really buy that. I think nothing in hockey has really changed too much, except the talent level has probably increased, the science, sports science. But I think that strength, size, speed, skill, the mind, I think all of it is always as equally as important as it's always been. As somebody who from what I can tell, had a really good balance, and obviously toughness wise, you were obviously known as one of the top guys in the league. Like that, I've seen. I've seen videos of you fighting, seen the intimidation factor. How big of a part of the game is it when you're out there on the ice and you're playing against grown men, right? You're not playing against children anymore, 17-year-olds. You're playing against adults with families. How big of a factor is the physicality, the size of the players around you, the intimidation, the attitude, and the zero fear, at least that you have to present, whether it's inside or not? How big of a part of the game was it in your era? And do you think it's still as big as it was back in the day, to some degree?
I think that's a great question. Um, just before I got in the league, the Flyers won the cup with the Broad Street Bullies, and they went and beat up and intimidated a lot of teams. By the time I got into the league, this is just my opinion, mostly true stories. Um, by the time I got in the league, every team, and they got tired of their guy team. Every team had loaded up on tough guys, and these are tough guys. They were tough, and I believe that there were good players that couldn't play in the league because they just couldn't take the beatings. They just couldn't take it, and I get it, and the intimidation. But when I first broke in the league, I used to joke with the guys. I said, "You goal scorers seem to be really smart, but this is what I've noticed: when the whistle blows, you guys stop." And by now you should figure out I've got about 3 seconds to charge you, charge one of their players and cross-check them in the neck from behind and knock them flying and hurt them. I said, he stopped for me. They're tough to catch during the regular play, and now they stop and stand still and you knock them flying. How you goal scorers very smart. And so the game was brutal like that. It was brutal. And when the whistle goes, you might stop playing the puck because it doesn't matter, but you got to watch it. And during my career, I thought there were some good guys that couldn't make the team. They couldn't take the beatings. And there were some tough guys that weren't very good, but they gave out beatings and were valuable. And throughout my 10 years, at the end, they started calling the penalties differently. So now you can't hit a guy, 3 seconds after. Then you could only hit him 2 seconds after the whistle. And finally, they wouldn't even let you cross-check in the back of the neck 1 second behind the whistle. And finally, that's a penalty. So the game changed. Guys lost their careers because this crazy shit didn't work anymore. And other good players could play. So, and so my hats off goes to when I think of tough guys. Certainly there's Barry Beck and Clark Gillies and Willie Plett and Terry O'Reilly. They're tough players, but they could also play. They could also play, and they're out there all the time, and you got to watch them all the time. But they're also tough guys, and the way I saw it is like Bobby Clark, Billy Barber, Reggie Leach. They're tough guys. They didn't give it out, but you could hack them. You could run them over. You could do whatever you want. And two things is you could take all the penalties you want against them, and they're glad to go out in the power play. But the other hand was you couldn't intimidate them because if there was a loose puck, they're putting in the net. They're not standing 10 feet back. They're not 20 feet back because they're intimidated. So there were tough guys. They may not have given it out, but you couldn't back them down. And some guys you could. And those are the guys that didn't play very long. And what I believe is, and then, the fighters and tough guys are getting bigger and bigger and heavier and heavier. And, in anything like wrestling, they have weight classes, and the weight classes usually go up by 10 pounds. And all of a sudden there's guys, there could be a 40-pound difference, which is pretty almost, well, it's impossible to overcome. But as they started taking this out, and then the bigger guys couldn't play, everyone, the average weight went down, I believe. And they made for it made for a much cleaner game. One of the things I don't understand is the guys go to play a man and they just sweep away and they don't take the body anymore. And there's a lot of instances where if we did that, you'd sit on the bench and until the coach, he couldn't see you for games. And then, but now the game is a lot more just sweep at the guy, keep your speed up, keep going. And the game has changed. And, like football, the receivers used to cut through the middle and have their heads taken off. That's not in the game anymore. So it's a lot easier to catch the ball through the middle. And, the games evolve. Who knows what the right balance between the two is and all that. I think that those discussions go on forever. But I would say that my first 5 years, the game was extremely violent, and I was good at that and a major contributor. Um, but it shortened careers because no one can take those beatings, and there wasn't any. And I talked to some of the other guys and what can't I don't know what the proper word is saying of idiotic thing happened to someone and how they idiotically got them back and whatever. And it was, looking back, it was crazy. Kind of funny now, but I wouldn't want to go back to those years. And but you also see, excuse me, like this year in playoffs. All of a sudden, in playoffs, the refs seem to lose their whistle, and the game gets tougher. And those sweeping checks become real hard hits, and the game gets tougher and tougher in playoffs. And I think the ironic part, at least my take, is that game gets tougher and tougher in playoffs nowadays. When I played, the game got tougher and tougher, just like this game right now. But guys aren't going to take penalties because you can lose the game, you can lose the playoff series. So of all the fights I got into, I don't know if I ever got in a fight in playoffs.
Yeah, you have to be more disciplined, right? Like in that situation, I guess.
Well, my strategy is exactly that there's some one guy I might want to go after, and my feeling, that's what training camp's for, right? You play an exhibition game, you can give me 10 million minutes and penalties in an exhibition game. I couldn't care less. And during the regular season, I cared more, but in playoffs, it's you just be very careful about taking a penalty, cost your team the game, cost your kid the season. So I love the playoffs now. It reminds me a lot more of when we played, and but I do think the guys are by and large a little lighter, and that's because how they call the penalties. You just can't get away with that crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ben, you played in an era where the physicality in the game is much more different than it is today, as you alluded to in just your last statements there. What's your thoughts now, just on the current state of the game versus when you played? Are there things that you like with today's game, don't like, as compared to how it was when you played?
Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting in my first exhibition game, I got the puck behind our net. I did an end-to-end rush, deked their defenseman, and deked their goaltender and scored. And that doesn't exist anymore because I was fast for a defenseman, but now everybody is fast. So the disparity between players, between their, how big they are, how strong they are, and how fast they are between forwards and defensemen, it really is lessened. And probably a great example, I played in Chicago with Keith Brown, and Keith Brown was extremely fast and extremely strong and in extremely phenomenal shape. How does a forward go around him? You can outskate him? Nope, you're not faster than him. You're going to muscle your way in? Nope, you're not stronger than him. And so that changed. Back then, there used to be disparities in skills. Some guys were shooters and skaters and hitters and things like that. So a lot more of it is similar now. A lot of guys have skills, and um, um, so I don't like the sweeping checks, but I understand um, that's part of the game. And probably the other thing I don't like, what's changed is um, goaltenders' pads used to be made of probably leather with felt in them, and they get wet and then they get heavy. So the goaltenders' pads could only be so big because eventually even the goaltender can't move them. And with all the new advances in technology and things like that, even with equipment, I bet equipment is, half the weight of when I played.
Yeah.
But for the goaltenders' pads now are so light and the pads are huge. The pads are huge. And if you come down and take a shot, I think you have close to zero chance of scoring because the goaltenders come out, cut the angle, their pads are huge. There's nowhere to hit and score. And I think of the great times when Reggie Leach would come down on the wing. And if he got to the top of circle and blast, there's a good chance he could score. And now I think there's no chance. So I'd like to see the goaltenders' pads a little smaller. And so there's a little bit more shooting rather than you score by shooting off of someone's ass and in the net, and so the real skilled shooters can score. Um, I think that would be nice. Um, and I love the way the game is played in playoffs. I thought these playoffs were absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely
almost like
amazing.
if they could do those playoffs and the way they do it now for the full, 82 game season, that would be the ideal. But I think it's just the refs and the way they call things, they just don't let that happen,
Well,
unfortunately.
yeah, exactly. I think the intensity, because you're playing in the playoffs, and it's every set shift is do or die, and you're just trying to make it for one more shift. But like you said, they put the whistle away, and it can be a little bit tougher and a little bit more fighting. And I think that's the nice mix to make the game interesting. Because I thought playoffs this year were great.
Yeah.
Players get more emotionally involved that way, right? Like when there's some physicality, they're able to, get into the game more versus
Engaged.
when there's maybe no hitting or like it's kind of a low event game, right? Where I think to your point, like that's where it makes it more interesting for the fans watching. So
Yeah, I think a big hit can emotionally charge your team. I think it can be disruptive to their team. You can break up a play. You it's one thing is a defenseman. If you know you're not going to get hit, carrying the puck isn't as precarious. But if you're last man back and someone hits you down, knocks you down, where's the puck? It's a little bit different, right? So I think it adds more dimensions if there's a little bit more hitting, a little more disruption. I always like it. One of my all-time heroes, Paul Holmgren, and if you ever watch his tapes, he was the king of someone's coming down the left wing, he's on right wing, he'd drive towards the net. And you realize at a certain point the puck's never going to make it to the net. Your guy's being taken off. Didn't matter, Paul. Paul kept going and it'd run him right through the goaltender, almost kill him. You know, he usually got a penalty, but you've almost killed their goaltender. And you see it coming. And if you watch when we went to the finals against the Islanders, I don't know how many times he ran over Billy Smith. And it's just so great. You know he's not going to stop. You know
it's
he's just going to
calculated, right?
flat. Oh, it's just, now, of course, you piss off their entire team. Everyone wants to kill you and things like that. You make a lot of enemies. And even if they don't get you now, there's next year in training camp. So it takes a lot of guts to do that. But that was Paul. He wasn't afraid of anything.
No, that was his reputation. I mean, primarily we saw him as like a general manager, right, and president of the Flyers, but that's how he was a GM too. I mean, the guy has balls. Let's be
Wasn't
honest.
afraid to make moves, right? Look at those
Never.
offer sheets to Shea Weber and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
He was tough as nails.
I love that. So let me ask you this. Well, we'll do two more questions here. Who would you say, you mentioned, three of the greats already. Who would you say was the most talented Flyer you played with? Is it the obvious, like the one that everybody talks about, like Clarkey? Was it somebody else that maybe was more skilled than anybody truly realized?
Well, I mean, there's Bernie Perron. Only the Lord saves more than
More than
Bernie.
Bernie, of course.
And
Exactly.
I came, I played with him about half a year till he got a Jimmy Watson popped him with a stick in the eye. But guys like Clark and Billy Barber would say, in practice, and if you know Bernie's the nicest guy in the world. He's happy, he's laughing, he's joking. In practice, you can't score on him. You can't score him, and he's laughing at everyone. And he'd have Reggie and Billy come down and just blast at him. And sometimes he'd put his hands behind his back, and they say, and just play with his legs, and he still can't score on him. And Bernie was amazing. I would say, in terms of all-time great, it's got to be Clark. And I'll tell you why. I'm 19, and the guys say when we're on the power play, said Ben, pull you over. You got to carry the puck more. Don't make Clark do all the skating, all the puck handling. Give him a break, and then you carry the puck. Okay, so I'm going to carry the puck, and these are pros, and I'm 19. The guys angled me off, and I've got half a second to make a pass. And who do you think is open with this stick out at the right spot, with able to take a pass? The easiest spot I could find, with a stick in the right spot with the perfect timing. Then I pass it to Clark, and he goes down and carries the puck and say, Ben, you got to carry the puck more, right? So I start carrying the puck. I get angled off, and who was always there? Always there when you're about to get run over. Who was always there for the easy outlet pass? That's Bobby Clark. So, in terms of controlling the game, instead of you firing the puck away or losing or whatever, he controlled the game like that. Um, but he anticipated, he had all the skills, and and if you were open, he got you the puck. So one time we're on a power play, and he's a little ahead of me, and I'm breaking down the wing, going to sneak in behind everyone, and all of a sudden he gets tangled up with, I think, two or three of their guys. He's never going to get the puck to me. So I stopped skating. And about 2 seconds later, maybe 1 second later, he lifts the puck up with his backhand, and it slides right to where I should have been. And I could have had the puck and had a hell of a shot on that. Now, knowing me, I wouldn't have scored, but I felt so humiliated because I stopped skating, because there's no way you can get him the puck. But guess who can get you the puck no matter what? I played 5 years with Clark. I saw him make one bad pass. One. Other than that, if you're open, and they're not bouncing passes like I talked about earlier, they were flat on your stick. They were nice and crisp. And even he had eyes in the back of your head. Even, there's no way you could know where you are. He knew where you were. And sometimes it didn't. It looked like he'd passed on. He was doing something else. One time there's a penalty, and they hadn't called it. The referee raised the puck, his hand, and the Clark's in their corner, and I'm on defense, so I start breaking right to the net, and he's about to pass me the puck, and doesn't. And I keep passing, breaking to the net, and he looked off me. He's passing to someone else. Next thing is, he passed me the puck right, like 3 feet in front of the net. I almost wasn't ready for it, and all you could do is just get it and sort of like poke it ahead. Startled everybody, including me, and it went in the net. So I became a goal scorer because of Clark's play. But he was amazing like that. But Billy Barber, all-star. Kenny Linsman was phenomenal. I played junior against Kenny, and he was a phenomenal player. But Clark was the best. Kenny was like just lightning in a bottle. Just let him loose. He was great. So we had some great players.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to close it out on your book. Vasili, did you have another question before we close out on the book?
No, nothing from my end, but
Okay,
just that story in terms of Clark and all the
that's
great
awesome.
players. Yeah, such great teams that the Flyers had. I think it's funny because the physicality sometimes it might have overshadowed just how talented some of those players were, right? And it's just to hear you talk about it, Ben, it just, it kind of encapsulates it even more. So it's awesome.
Right, it was always the bullies, right? Not the
Right.
superstars. but
But when you have 50
had a
goal
lot of them.
scorers like Reggie Leach and Bill Barber, and you
Yeah.
have 100-point players like Bobby Clark, it's not just the physicality, right? These guys can play hockey too. So,
Yeah.
The magic, like Clark won the MVP. I don't know how many Hart Trophy. I don't know how many times, and he was that good. He was that good, and he was that good in practice. And he never said anything about it, but or anything. He was that good. Jimmy Watson was a great. Oh, Mark Howe.
Mark Howe.
how
Yeah.
can we forget about Mark Howe, right?
Mark Howe, in my opinion, was the best defenseman in the league. There is, I played with Mark in my fifth year, and up until that point in time, I didn't think anyone could skate like Mark. I didn't think that skating existed. Now, first of all, he was a great player and knew how to play. Good mind, good vision, could handle the puck, mobile. But in terms of just skating, he was fast as hell. And from my vantage point, he didn't get tired. I'd never seen that combination before, and I thought I was fast. I was fast for a defenseman. He was faster, but I was fast in the sprint and the shorter spurts. And I used to skate with him every day, and he would skate me into the ground. Literally, I could barely walk, not keeping up with him, just trying to keep up with him. He could skate like nothing, and he made it look easy. And one of the things I thought would be great about Mark, if you're up 3-1, Mark wasn't trying to get another goal or assist. He stayed back. He played it safe. He wasn't trying to be the me guy or whatever. He did everything right. He should have won the best defenseman. I don't know how many years, but he was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. I've seen footage of him. Actually, I went to high school with one of his sons. So it's very, very cool. I kind of think of him as like he reminds me of Nicholas Lidstrom, in the way that he played. Also I consider Lidstrom the best defenseman of all time. And I feel like Mark Howe and Lidstrom were pretty similar, that smooth skating defenseman, could play every aspect, but didn't make mistakes. Right? Like
Yeah,
that's I feel like is key.
that, and I'll tell you the other thing is about Mark. First of all, the player is great, but where it was amazing is you can start any conversation with Mark, and by the time you finished, he makes it sound like you're the superstar and he's just hanging on the team. It doesn't matter how many times you do it, and you go home and say that he'll never do that to me again, and it happens again and again, and you can't. It's like this. As great a player he was an unmovable force. He always made you feel special and great. And one time we were out in Hartford. He says, "My dad's got a restaurant," and I said, "You want to come to dinner with us?" Well, we always hung out, so it was yes. And you mean with Gordy? I don't know if he sits at his own table. And what do you say? Yeah, we're going. And so I spent the whole dinner, and Gordy is just like Mark. So now I've got two Hall of Famers, two absolutely incredible players. And by the time we finished dinner, I was the Hall of Famer, and they're just happy that I would sit down at the same table with them. It was absolutely crazy, and you can't stop them. They're that genuine of people, and I think I put in my book, Mark Howe, the humble superstar, and you sit there and say, and that's the way they were every day. It was incredible.
This is amazing insight, I gotta say. So let's end on this. This is kind of a generic question, but I do like the question. You wrote this book. It's obviously about your playing career, your life in general. When people do read it, and again, Gloves Off is the name of the book by Ben Wilson, obviously. What do you want them to take away from reading, about you and what you put down into words?
Well, my book is not about, I started off as a young child, and, when I was, 10 years old, I scored 14 goals and I got 22 assists. What I wanted to do um, was give a shout out, and I call them shows, to some of the players that I played with that were had a special talents, meaningful, I was honored to be playing with him. So I wanted to do that. And I think I did. And then the other part is I really wanted, like, if we're going to talk about goals, I think Gretzky can write that book. Lemieux can write that
Sure.
book. And then I scored my 4 billionth and 100 millionth goal and won. And they've got that one covered. I really want to talk a little bit more behind the scenes stuff, about stuff that, not everything goes your way. Not everything goes your way with good intentions, like Gretzky scoring, the 50th goal against us. And, one of the things I think is interesting, and I've told this, I say, if you were a fly on the wall in the dressing room, and your one job as the fly is tell me who the superstar is, and you couldn't. You couldn't. You'd never pick out Perrant. You'd never pick out Clark, Leach, Barber, Jimmy Watson, Moose DuPont. You'd never pick out any. You'd come up and say, "I give." And these are great players, but they never acted like it. And when I was 19, so I was 19, and I went to the first training camp I was in with the minor league players the week early. And they're just telling me what about a rotten season I'm going to have, and they're cutting my pants and hiding my clothes and all that sort of stuff. And so my first year, I made the Flyers, so I didn't have to put up with them. But Jimmy Watson, my roommate, he says, "Hey Ben, we get the hotel, let's check in. We're meeting downstairs in 10 minutes." And there wasn't a time that he didn't invite me for dinner. And defensemen and the goalies would hang out. And they had already won the Stanley Cup, and there I am. I'm played 2 games for the team, and they made me feel welcome, like I'm part of it. And I think those stories are pretty interesting because people talk about, oh, this guy's humble, and oh, they're really great. And these guys really were. And these guys really were, and I was blessed and fortunate, and they made it great for me. And as a rookie, you make a couple bad mistakes when you're ready to slit your own throat, and you're just dying. And these guys that come over, I remember a long story, but this guy beat me and scored me. He says, and Jimmy Watson says, "Hey, don't worry, he's done that to all of us." And he laughs, and we move on. And you say, "Isn't that pretty nice, right? Isn't that, because you can't feel any worse about what happened. You can't bring it back. You can't undo it." And guys like that, Moose DuPont was always great. Was always great. And you got the ribbing and all that stuff as a rookie, but a little bit of ribbing and a lot of making you feel welcome. And remember, they had won the Stanley Cup. This isn't guys just hanging in. These are all stars, cup holders. They're great players. So I wanted my book to say, and give a shout out to what some of the guys, a little bit behind the scenes, some of the stupid stuff, or some of the good stuff that ends up stupid and all that. So it's a fun book. It's and I hope people like it.
And you can get it any bookstore or Amazon.
Amazon is the easiest. It's even on the Kindle audiobook.
Awesome.
I actually narrated it myself
Oh,
for
sweet.
That's
those
so
that don't
cool.
think I can read. And it's stilted. It's stilted, but that's I still read at a second grade level, which
It's pretty
which
good.
is a lot higher than most people give me credit for.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I love that. Um, Ben, this was an absolute pleasure. Your stories are amazing. I'm sure your book is amazing. Everybody listening should definitely check it out. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. Really,
Yeah, it
really
was a great time.
enjoyed
We
it.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, listen, you just tell everyone you can buy the book. They don't have to read it. I just want them to buy the book. Okay.
Yeah. Fair enough.
We'll
I'll
make sure we tell the audience that.
I'm gonna
Exactly.
I'm gonna put the Amazon link to buy your book in the description of the podcast. It'll be in our YouTube video as well,
Yeah.
and the audio as well. So
Well, I think that if people read the book, they're going to like it because there's enough flashbacks to some great times that people will resonate, and it's a happy book and laughing at the good and the bad.
I love that. Okay, I gotta say, we just talked about this in between, but that was an awesome interview. I hope you guys listened to the whole interview. His stories are insane, first of all. The names that he's dropping, right? It's like it opens up with
Yes.
Gretzky, then Bobby
Bobby
Clark,
Clark, Reggie Leach, Bernie
yeah,
Perrot, a ton
Mark
of
Howe,
legends, right? Literally
yeah,
legends, all stars, guys that were some of the best players in their era, I would say. So it was really cool to get his perspective, obviously, on being an NHL player.
yeah,
And for me, just some of the different nuances that you wouldn't necessarily get. Right. Like he definitely, with some of his stories, gives a really cool and fresh perspective. So yeah, that was fun.
yeah.
We should definitely have him on again, Yariv. I'd be down in the future. So
Oh, absolutely. We're gonna have Ben on again. That was amazing. It'd be awesome to do, and we're gonna talk about this while we're on the show. I wonder if I can get Steve Kornianos and Ben Wilson on the same
oh,
show.
that would be really good.
I feel
Yeah.
like Steve would really enjoy that. And maybe we'll work on that in the future. Steve obviously is a little bit older than us, so he even like in his hockey now he's an encyclopedia. The same way like Bill Meltzer's an encyclopedia. Just the amount of hockey content that's in those brains. But yeah, what stuck out to me because like I asked him that question about the difference of the toughness and the evolution of the game, which he gave us a great answer for. But like what kind of stuck out to me there is that I think my theory is correct, right? Is that it's not that size and speed and all that, like nothing has changed. It's like nothing has gone away. It's evolved, right? So
Yeah.
like and if you think about like what he said, it's like before the tough guys, and we saw this too. This was also like in our youth, right? There were guys who would just go out there and fight. Now it's just like everybody has to be tough, right? Everybody has to be fast. Everybody has to have skill. Everybody has to be able to score a goal. It's not that any of these things went away in importance. It's the importance of everything has gone up. Where like if you are a Matthew Kachuk, right? If you are, even a Radko Gudas, if you are any one of these like type of physical players, Jacob Slavin, Nicholas Kronwall, right? Like any of these guys, you can level people or fight, or a Tom Wilson, obviously like the modern day old school player. The value of it, the impact of it when you have the skill to compete at this high level. Because like Ben Wilson probably in today's game would probably be like a number 4 defenseman, right? Where he played a top pairing role back in the day, right? It's kind of like what Ristolainen does for our team today. It's like you have to be physical. And I love what he said there that like,
You have to be well-rounded, right? Like you got to be physical, but also like all those other things also matter as well. So it's like a
yes,
combination of both versus in the past, right?
yes. And he touched on something like really important. And I think when we think of like young players coming into the league, right? Like you talk about Michkov and Martone, and even like guys like Morgan Frost when he came in, and like guys like Denver Barkey, and like we talk about it, we see it on the ice, right? They can ignore the intimidation and the fear, right? Like they go into the dirty areas, even though they're not fully grown men like the other guys. They're not as physically strong, and yet they fight for it anyway. And this is what we love about Matvei Michkov. And for all the talk there is about Martone, and we had Colby on last week, talking about how Martone goes to the dirty areas. So does Michkov. Like,
He loves to go to the net. Yeah.
but that's the thing. Like, and I was thinking about when he was talking about Barber and Leach and like how they expect to score, right? You
Also,
know,
Michkov, has that same
yes,
level. Like you could see the frustration in him, right? Like when he gets the puck in a certain area, he knows like, man, I should have scored on that chance. I think that's like a almost
exactly.
almost like setting high expectations for yourself as a player, right? Like you have that expectation when you get that opportunity to score because you believe that you yourself are on that level of greatness. So I think
Right.
like it's a level of confidence, and you could maybe say maybe it's overconfidence, but I think in a sense, like as a player, you want to have that positive mindset. Like you don't want to be getting the puck in these situations, be like, well, I'm gonna flub this and I'm not gonna like if you go into it with that type of mindset, you're never gonna be successful. That's why these guys made it to the level that they're at currently in the NHL, right? Because they have that mindset, that belief that they have the ability to do those things. And even at the greatest level, right? You have to have confidence in yourself. And we see it with so many young guys how when a player who is just coming to the league is confident in their abilities, it's a night and day versus a young player that maybe has been in a
Hesitant.
2 week slump or is hesitant and is just gripping the stick a little too tightly, right?
Yeah, and it's what makes me believe that Michkov will bounce back. I know how quickly the league like gives up on players. And again, I bring this up all the time. It's not a fault of the individual who does it. Is when you're covering the league, you don't have time to worry about if a player bounces back. You make your call and that's it. And we do it with other players that are
Yeah.
not on our team because you're not in the intricacies of what the every team is doing every day. We would do that with the Flyers. That's why we only cover the Flyers because we couldn't cover the league the way we cover the Flyers, not working full time on the side, right? And I think about Michkov and like the him coming in out of shape, and I'm listening to what Ben was saying about himself, like skating 6 hours a day, and then you hear the story about Mark Howe, the conditioning, and how it does lend to that theory that we keep talking about, that it really just was conditioning, and why Tocchet harped on it so much, because this is an immensely talented player who has superstar expectations for himself, and he didn't do what needed to be done.
That's just
I
the
do,
base level too, right? Like you have to come in shape. That's just like a ground level thing that
there's
should
no
be
way
assumed
around
of
it.
pro players,
Yeah,
right? So
100%. And it's like, I really hope, and from what we've seen, this is the case so far. We'll obviously have to wait for training camp and beginning of the season, but it looks like Michkov has been reignited, right? And any one of the young guys
let's
can
hope.
fall into this trap too in a sophomore year, right? So I hope they all learn from what happened to Michkov as well. A guy who came in and put up 65 points in his first year, took a step back, but like wasn't, it's not like he dropped off the center of the earth. He put up 51 points, but it's like if you
You expect
combine
more. You
the,
expect more from a guy of that age
yeah,
who's
but
putting up those points initially.
But
So
if you combine the mindset that Michkov did bring in and that Martone brought in, right, with the work ethic and the drive, that's how you become a star. You're obviously limited by your potential. Not everybody has Gretzky like potential, or
yeah,
Claude Giroux
or
even,
those physical tools to
right?
get to that
Or
point in the first place.
the hockey
So
mind. But what you can control is your mindset and your effort to be ready for the
your work
season.
ethic, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So very, very cool. Um, very, very cool interview. I really, really enjoyed that. Um, and I feel like, just to harp on this a little bit longer, I feel like what drives me nuts about these like online ranking lists, because these guys are spread thin, like Wheeler, for example. And again, this is not a knock on Wheeler. I want to emphasize that, because when I bash these lists, I'm not bashing the hockey mind. I'm not shitting on Scott Wheeler. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's working hard. This is not a knock on these individuals, but the ability for what these scouting teams do, where they go and evaluate the mind of the athlete, which is why I still believe in Jet Luchenko, right? A kid who shows up underage in NHL shape. Like, this stuff is so rare that, like, how do you evaluate the mind of a player and know that he's going to take his tools, his physical game, his output, and use it to grow? That's how you see like a guy like Pasternak, get drafted late in the first round. Everybody considers that, like, if you look at those lists, like Pasternak was considered a bust. Like, they thought that was a terrible draft pick for the Bruins, right? And so it's like, yeah, it's just a combination of what these guys actually go through and the mindset that they put through, and then And I love what he said there too. And I thought about Michkov and everything and the young guys where he said, you know, you make the team and then you realize you have to do this every day, right? Like you have to show up and play against the best players in the world who are all playing their, you know, at least 80, 90% their hardest every single game. Like that must be so grueling
Of
to do
course, yeah. It's taxing, right? To be able to do that night in and night out,
physically, mentally.
consistently, right? Like I think it's the consistency part that's tough. Like it's easy to go out there and do it for one time, a few times, but to
Right.
be able to do that on that same
Every night.
level consistently every single night, like that's what separates the greats from the not.
Yeah,
So,
it makes you respect guys like I know Sidney Crosby and
well, he's
McDavid.
been doing it forever, Crosby, right? Like
Yeah,
at this point, it's he's an anomaly. He's an
but
anomaly.
they're not the only ones. I bring them up because they're the best of their era, right? Like they're the two past
Well, like
generation
I mean, like
players.
an
But
anomaly to their
no,
era.
no,
That's
yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's just all of these guys who, any of them, or even a guy like Cates, Noah Cates, who
yeah.
physically is not the most gifted player in the league, but mentally is locked in every game. Like Cates does not make mistakes. That's part of the beauty of Noah Cates. He's never out of position. He's never not in a game. He's never not playing hard on a shift. Like that is something you cannot teach as a coach, right? You can't
Yeah.
coach that into a player. That is a personality trait. And I think that's what stops. And I like what he said there, right? Like a lot of guys just couldn't handle the battle, right? I think that still exists today. I forget the name of the player. Was his last name was Reichel, I think. Was it Reichel or Stepan? There was a young player who was drafted really high, and he just kind of quit. He's
Lucas
like, I don't want to
Reichel?
do this anymore.
I don't know if it's Lucas Reichel, but
And I don't think it was Lucas Reichel. It was before that. I forget the guy's
okay.
name. It's escaping me right now. But
No
he just straight
worries.
up like quit. He was like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this every day. Like I don't
Yeah,
love
it's
it
hard.
enough.
It's not like it's easy. It's not like it's easy to be in it. Like it's not like it's easy, first of all, to get to that point. And then once you get there to sustain that amongst a bunch of other individuals who are also the top 1% in this profession that you're in. So it's
Who
unbelievably
are
hard.
grinding,
Yeah, it's
right?
unbelievably hard to become a professional athlete, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
insane, right? This is why I always talk about like I never disrespect anybody who's played in the NHL.
Even being an AHL player, like even to get to the minor league level, or like
You're in the 1% in the
even if
world
you look at
of
like
your
the
sport.
NBA, like even if you're not in the NBA but you're in the G League, like just to get to that point of being like that good to even be on the cusp of it, like is tremendously hard. So yeah,
Yes.
hats off to any of these people that
Yeah.
do that.
So let's talk about the main topic around this podcast. We were theming this whole podcast around Ben's interview, which is essentially toughness, right?
Yep.
Are the Flyers tough enough, right? And there is a way to think of this of like, okay, they were going for Arbor Jack Eye potentially, right?
Yeah.
That
But
conversation's
before you
happening.
continue, Reeve, I don't want to even say like it's not toughness from
I think
the
you're reading my
typical
mind.
standpoint, but
Go
it's
ahead.
like tough to play against, right? Like I
Yes.
think are the Flyers tough to play against? And if you look at their last season under Rick Tocchet, I would say that in a lot like they were in a lot of close games, one goal games. Like if you're not a team that's tough to play against, you're not going to be in that many close one goal overtime games. I think they went to the most overtimes and shootouts of anybody in the league. It's not
Yeah.
really surprising, right? So if you look at it that way, like just from that surface level analysis on from my point of view, I think they were tough to play against. Now you have to continue that identity as you kind of go into the future seasons, right?
Yeah, and I think it is the Torts effect and then the Tocchet effect on top of it, right? You're bringing a
Yeah.
nut like Torts and then the tough guy of Tocchet, and it does. And this is why everybody why Toronto hired Craig Berube, right? You hope that that guy's attitude can trickle down to the rest of your roster. I don't think Craig Berube is the right coach for the Maple Leafs in the end, and that also, we talk about that. The right coach for the right time for the right team doesn't make him a bad coach, right? But
Yeah.
this team physically, they're not the biggest team in the league. In fact, in a lot of ways, they're undersized, right? Like on the back end, they're a little bit undersized. On the wings, they're a little bit undersized. They don't have enough size. That's why the Flyers have been really emphasizing on drafting guys that are physically stronger. But the mentality behind it, even when you look at a guy like Denver Barkey, right? You look at a guy like Matvei Michkov, who gets in guys' faces, who battles around the net, and he's 5'10", 5'11". He is thick, but he's not the biggest dude. And obviously the biggest of them, Travis Konechny, right, who is a rat by today's standard. He's got that Marchand in him, right?
Yeah.
Like they do have these collection of guys. Tippett got physically a lot tougher. We saw him throw big hits. They have Tyson Forrester who battles. They have Noah Cates who battles. They have
They have a lot of
Dvorak.
battlers though.
Yeah,
Like they don't have I would say like they have finesse players who are skillful guys, but the guys that do have the skill, they're also not afraid, like to your point, Michkov earlier, he'll go to the net. Martone will go to the net. Forster, Konechny, like some of the team's best players are not afraid to mix it up. Like hell, even Zegras we saw in the playoffs, right? Like he wasn't afraid to get dirty and mix things up at all. So I think that's a
yeah,
good sign. That's a good
yeah,
sign to have these talented guys that like you don't want to have guys on your top two lines shying away from that when the going gets tough. You want them to embrace that. So I think just seeing on the surface level them doing that in the playoffs, not shying away from that, like that's a good thing. But you also it's instilling that too in the younger players who are coming up as well, right? Like Barkey, Bump, Bonk, for example, like they're seeing the best players on the team play with this edge, and they probably think to themselves, "Hey, look at how these guys are doing it. We have to follow suit, right?" So it's almost like a leadership by example type of
yeah.
thing.
They lose D'Lo and they lose Hathaway. They obviously bring in Chari, and they have like Grabankin hanging in the wings, who's like
Yep.
supposedly going to be healthy. How do they compensate? I guess that's the question for like losing these two guys. They didn't really replace them. Like Achari is like he plays hard, but he's not Hathaway agitator. He's
No.
not Delorier fighter. And look, don't get me wrong. I don't think Delorier is a very good hockey player at the NHL level, but I did talk about his skill set is elite at what he does, right? What he does, the intimidation game, the fighting, he is elite. He's one of the best in the league at it. How do they compensate for this, right? Like they have Risto, they have Hunter McDonald, in the minors. They have Nick Seeler, they have Sean Couturier, who obviously is now evolving his game to be
Yep.
more of that guy for this team, like stepping up. Anybody else come to mind? Like, how do they kind of compensate for this now? Because they don't have a fighter. They don't have like a guy who fights, right?
Yeah, but I think for them, like they don't need to necessarily have a fighter. I think you have enough guys that would do it by committee potentially, where you're not going to like lose out on, oh no, we don't have a guy who's doing it like Delorier, right? Like you have Ristolainen will step in, Sealer will step in. We've seen Cates fight before, Konechny will fight. Grabankin will fight as well. We've seen him do it too. Couturier will fight. So I think it's more just sticking up for one another. Like when you have to understand as a team now we don't have that guy. So as a committee, we need to kind of pick that slack up and be there for one another because we don't have a player like Delorier who will just by default do that for us. I also think it's like a mentality of just grinding games out. Like chip that puck. Obviously you don't want to be a team that just does dump and chase. Like I think the Flyers want to have a balance where they're carrying the puck in, but they're also dumping it in. Like we know Tocchet likes to dump, but we saw in the playoffs like they were carrying it in quite a bit against Pittsburgh to kind of combat their playing style. So I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like don't be afraid to get in the corners, get dirty, lay a hit, forecheck, right? Like you can't let those little aspects of the game get away from you for a more finesse polished version. Like you have to, because we saw the playoffs, like you have to be willing to go to the net and play in the dirty areas. That's where these games are won at the highest level at the most crucial time. So I think, regular season is regular season. You got to score goals. You have to be able to open the offense up, but you also have to be able to play that gritty type of game. And I think Tocchet got them ready for that. Like if you look at the end and the stretch run of last season and into the playoffs, like they were playing from, March onwards, essentially gritty, one goal style, get to the net type of game to create their offense. So I think just doing that and playing in a typical style will help them.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. So if we look at like young guys that were drafted by the Flyers who could potentially step up over the next, let's say, 2 years, um, some names do come to mind. Obviously, I mentioned Hunter McDonald already. Ty Murchison is another guy who kind of falls in that toughness
I
category.
think Nesbitt's like a bigger guy. I'll go to the net. Like I feel like he brings that type of element where
100,
he might not be the
100%.
flashiest. He might not be the flashiest, but I think when he's all said and done, like a finished product with his size, his strength, just like how he plays below the dots and he's strong defensively, like that is by default a tough guy to play against, right? Like a player who he's not going to cheat defensively. He's going to make you work for every inch of the ice. Like that's the type of mold I think that like a Nesbitt is, right? Like he's not a tough guy, but boy, would he be a tough player to play against every single night. Same with the Berglund, right? Like those little details
Yeah.
where it's hard to move them off the puck. Hard to kind of start things the other way when you're in a puck battle against them. Like that's hard. Like those are little details that maybe people aren't all aware of. Like those are things that teams hate to have to match up against on a nightly basis and in a
And
playoff series.
and obviously there's the Portamartone, right? Who
Yes, he's also
does play that kind of game. You can see how the Flyers are molding their team with skill involved. And you brought up Nesbitt, and they what's it called, Team Canada just lost like 7-2, right, in one of these
to the
tournaments.
States. Yeah.
Yeah, to these tournament games. But the report out of it was that Nesbitt was their player of the game in a 7-2 loss, and he won all of his battles. Like, and again, I know a lot of people are like they're like, oh, he's fourth line on the team. I promise you, none of this stuff matters. The same way, and I like Jack Bergen. I've liked him from day one that the Flyers drafted him. My opinion of him has not changed at all from the time he has drafted. But the people who are going, oh, Jack Berglund had a good tournament, so now he's the best prospect at center, and it does not work that way. I promise you, it does not. But I look at a guy like Nesbitt, and I look at what he brings and the physical tools and how you can see him evolve and the battle and the compete. And we saw already glimpses of it at camp where you're like, could this guy play in the NHL already? There's really something there with the Jack Nesbitt. Outside of that, obviously Shane Van Sage is clearly like, this guy is built like Tom Wilson. They're hoping he can turn into Tom Wilson. At the very least, he seems like another Garnet Hathaway. I think this guy is going to be. We'll see what his NHL readiness is. He's obviously going back to college again, but he is one of those guys who maybe he'll jump into the NHL early just because he's a physical freak. He's impossible to get off the puck. We've seen him throw body checks at camp that send people flying. I also think Alex Bump's got competitive in him. There's Devin Kaplan out there who's a gritty type of player. I don't know how he'll materialize. I think Cole Knuble, while he's not a big guy, probably plays like his father in a lot of way. And his father was like very hard to move off the puck.
Yep.
He was known for that. Oliver Bonk's a bigger dude, a lot of compete in Bonk. Heike Rahonen, I think he falls in that same camp as Berglund.
I feel like with Rahonen, like he's similar to Berglund, where like he might not be the flashes on the score sheet, but like you're gonna see him below the dots, like winning faceoffs, board battles, you name it, like those little details that make you a tough player to play against. Like he's bringing that to the table, at least from what I saw from him in World Juniors with Finland. So
yeah, and obviously the big name right now is Carter Amico, right?
yeah.
Yeah, you look at what the effect that he's having and how people, and again, I bring this up because like last year, everybody didn't care about Amico. Yeah. And like overnight, the attitude has changed around him. I still see people talking down on Sokolovsky and be like, Flyers just went for another big guy. And not even Flyers fans, because now people have seen him at training camp or at development camp. So like they've kind of warmed up on him quite a bit. But I'm seeing it around. Like I was watching Will Scouching, if you guys know who he is, a good YouTuber, does prospect stuff. And he wasn't high on the pick at all, and he's like, oh, he can't move the puck up. And it's just like, this is what I feel like a lot of these internet scouts, they do not understand that well. They are smart people. I don't trust their opinions on their ability to evaluate competitiveness, the attitude behind it, the work ethic behind it. I don't trust them because they don't have insight on that. They just watch from the outside like the rest of us do. The difference that you and I have, Vasili, is that we'll track a certain player for several years. We'll see him at dev camp. We'll see him at training camp. We'll see little glimpses of. We'll see them evolve. So our opinions of them are a lot deeper than what we could do for the rest of the league if we stretched ourselves thin. But it looks like the Flyers are building. And even a guy like Matthew Gard, who was a second-round pick, also a really tough competitor. Jack Murtagh just had a big game. He's also a really tough competitor. The Flyers are drafting for an attitude more than they are size. That's what I am taking away. Like people are so focused on the size, but it's more of the hard competitor with the combination of skill that they are looking for. They are trying to be the Florida Panthers. That's
how can we build the toughest team to play against, right?
Yeah, it's like a combination, and you look at them trying to go for Leo Carlson, which would be Barkov, obviously, but it's like a combination of like they're idolizing two teams, the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. And they're both teams that win with always on your toes, always playing tough, always competing hard. That is like, I feel like the undefined, narrative for all of these teams. It's so hard to actually like, it's not a points measurement. But it's those teams. It's the reason why we beat the Penguins. It's the reason why we were able to fight at the end of the year and make the playoffs. Under the most tense time of the year, this team came up on top. I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know about you, Vasili, but like the skill, I feel like we will find that elite guy. Like we have the
Yeah.
assets. I don't care what anybody says, we do. We'll find an elite guy to add to this team. But the pieces around that are
That work
already
ethic.
good.
Yeah, that ethic, like that ability to be hard to play against. Like I think the foundation of that is already being set here and done so in a pretty effective way. If you just look at last playoffs, like the Flyers were tough to play against, right? Leading up to that too, they were one of the toughest teams to play against. So I think we're seeing the inklings of that settle in. And now when you try to add more to it in terms of talent, then we'll really see them kind of take that next step. So it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting. It's going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
and just to end on this, I was thinking again about what Ben said about like guys not being able to handle the physicality, and I think about Danny Briere, an undersized guy, probably came in the league not expecting to have to be that physical, evolved his game to be like a semi rat, rat
Yeah.
superstar, who understood how to fight in the corners and around the net. I feel like this is Danny Briere's mindset that he's looking for. I feel like you could replace his scouting team, you could replace everything. He probably would still go for similar type of players because I think at the end of the day, for a guy who came up big in the hardest moments, I think he's defined pretty well what he's looking for in those moments, and I think he's really good at identifying it. Again, it's just one of those things that gives me more faith in our GM that regardless of what the league is saying about us, and I think that narrative will continue to grow in the Flyers' favor. Um, I'm excited about the direction he's taking the team. All right. I want to transition a little bit here. We're not going to go too much longer. I do want to talk about something that came out of the Dylan Larkin camp.
Sure.
It does somewhat affect us, but I will say on Jeff Merrick's podcast, it was brought up. Jeff Merrick and Max Boltman, they identified that Dylan Larkin most likely his list is going to expand, and they named 3 teams that he would probably be interested in. Those 3 teams are the Montreal Canadiens, the Boston Bruins, and the Philadelphia Flyers are logical points.
I can
Now,
see it. Yeah.
yeah, like it's at a standstill. I do kind of agree with Colby that like how does he come back at this point?
He can't. There's no way. Like, I just imagine the disdain that locker room will have for him because if you put him in there, he's gonna be the cap. Like, how can you have the captain of your team literally
Being a
return when he
guy
said
be
he
like,
doesn't?
I'm out of here.
Yeah, like it just that's has disaster written all over it. You're throwing the season away, written all over it. I just can't see a new GM just take like punting this season potentially just to try to repair that relationship. Like I just because even if he repairs it, like chances are he's going to want out in a couple of years anyway. So I just can't see it.
Yeah. Now, I would identify both Boston and Philadelphia as the teams who need Larkin's particular services the most.
Yeah, agreed.
However, Montreal does have the assets the same way the Flyers do to make a trade like that happen. I think it would come down to what Larkin probably
Uh,
wants the most, though,
I
which
feel
could
like
be in our favor.
Montreal. Yeah, I feel like Montreal and the Flyers, like if you're looking at those 3 teams, would be the front runners. I honestly like I could understand why Boston would want him because they would want to
They
obviously
don't have
pair
a center
Pasternak.
like that.
Pasternak and him together would be
Yeah.
a great duo for them. But I just think like if you're looking at Boston trying to best Philadelphia or Montreal, like in terms of a package and the assets, I don't think they have the ability to do
And then
that.
you
So,
look at the USA
but
factor.
yeah,
Go ahead.
exactly. But to your point, like just because Boston can't match those assets, it doesn't mean the Flyers in Philadelphia want to give up that same caliber of assets to get him. So maybe that's how they sneak into the conversation, where it's like they're willing to give up this, and the Flyers and Montreal maybe aren't so willing to give
What
that up because they're already playoff teams, right? Boston is not. So
Well, they were last year. They had a 100-point
yeah,
year last year. They're where the Flyers are. They're just not in the same trajectory as the Flyers. They're more like kind of where they are with some good pieces there, and they always outdo what everybody thinks they're going to be. So I do give them that benefit of the doubt. But the Flyers are definitely more in a clear-cut trajectory up, and obviously Montreal
Yeah.
clearly is. Um, but it does kind of matter what Larkin wants, and that's actually a good thing because if he decides he wants to come to Philly, he's cheaper. That's
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
just the reality. Like their leverage goes away by him having the no trade clause, right? It
Well,
doesn't mean
just
they're
look
going
at
to
the
get
other
nothing,
players.
but
Look at the other players in the league who've done similar things when they want out, right? Like once they indicate, oh, it's this team that I'm interested to go to, we kind of see the other GM get handcuffed and can't maximize the return as he would have if there was no preference. So I think to your point, it would be great for the Flyers, but it remains to be seen what his preference actually is because I think he had a few high level like thoughts in terms of Florida, Dallas, things like that, but none of those teams really were able to pull the trigger. And I think it's the cap that is holding them back, right? So to your point, like I think it has to be a team that has the cap space. It's going to be really hard for some of those upper echelon, like actual legitimate Stanley Cup contenders to really acquire him unless they move salary out as well. So
yeah. So we'll see. We got to keep an eye on that one. Again,
I
I'm
think
not.
he's traded. I think he's traded before training camp. Like Colby made a great point last week. I just can't see them having that toxic situation introduced to their locker
I
room when they're trying to start a new slate with a new GM. Like it just doesn't seem like the way to build a team or a locker room. But what do we know, right? I
Yeah,
guess we'll see what
and
happens.
and I think that GM will not be that tied into Dylan Larkin, and he'll want to just be like, let's move on, right? Like he's
We need
gonna
to
want to
rip the
be like,
band-aid off.
yeah,
Yeah.
the same way that when Fletcher came in here, he ripped the band-aid off of the McDonald's situation. He's kind of just like, I'm getting rid of McDonald. Like,
Has to happen. Yeah.
yeah. So like I could see that happening with Dylan Larkin. We'll have to keep an eye out, maybe September, to your point. If the trade comes to the Flyers, it'll happen out of nowhere. It'll happen
Deadline
in like
spur
the
action.
middle of August and nobody will see it coming.
Deadline spur action. So whatever the training camp start date is,
Yeah,
like
you're right.
somewhere in the middle of September, I would imagine before that date he is
That's
somewhere
it's
else.
a great point. Okay, last little minor updates here on young guys before we cut out. This is according to Bill Meltzer. The Flyers have added two more players to their AHL, CHL level caliber. Cooper Wiley was added, no relation to the last Wiley, Wyatt Wiley, who played for the Flyers, was drafted by the Flyers. But this guy did play 4 years of NCAA hockey. He is now coming over to join most likely the Reading Royals, but maybe we'll get some time with the Phantoms. He's 24 years old. He's a defenseman, 6 foot. You know, it seems like mobile defenseman if he's 6 foot. We'll see pretty decent numbers at college. Nothing crazy. Last year he had 14 points in 36 games. So for St. Cloud, he was the captain. And then the other one is Mikel Robideau. Robida, I think is how you say it. He's 27 years old. He's a winger. He is an enforcer. Energy, heavy hitter, agitator. We were talking about that earlier. This is a
Yep.
guy who there's a good chance he will play in the AHL for that role specifically, but seems primarily like an ECHL guy. He's only played in the ECHL over the past several years. So we'll
Maybe
see
to
if he actually joins
protect
the Phantoms.
maybe to protect some of the younger guys because the Phantoms are gonna have quite a bit of younger players on the roster this season. So
Yeah,
I could see that being a reason why maybe.
he's not big though. He's 5'11", 205 pounds. So
But
he's
it just
like,
shows you don't have to be that big, huge guy anymore to be that type of fighter, right? You
yeah,
just have to have the willingness to do it, really. So,
he seems like a Garnet Hathaway type of dude. Like, I'm gonna
yeah,
go and just hit people left and
bring
right.
the energy with the
Yeah.
hitting. Exactly.
And then the last thing is Breck Liskey is looking at colleges. I did want to note that as well.
Yeah.
He will not be coming to the Flyers immediately. I think he is going to juniors, I think next year. But looks like he might be starting at college. I'm not sure exactly, but he's looking at Boston College, Boston University, Western Michigan, and the University of Wisconsin. So
We'll see where that goes. Yeah. And
wouldn't
if
be
he,
shocked if he ends up at Western Michigan with all, now that Jack Nesbitt's heading there. And they're like a
Yeah.
powerhouse. But I'm looking forward to a lot of these guys. This Liskey guy, he's like either he ends up being just like a pretty good bottom pairing defenseman, or he grows into like a guy who's just good at everything and can play top four. We will see. He's a second round pick, so you never really know with these guys. All right, that's it for us. Anything else you want to add?
Just everybody, we appreciate the listen, the view. Please continue to like the podcast, subscribe to our channel, hype up the video. It helps us get more viewers, new viewers, and gets our content out. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you guys. And along that, just a reminder to please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for notifications to get notified when we release these episodes. For the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes, give us a rating and a follow if you can. And like Vasili was saying, if you get to hype up our videos, that is amazing. Again, through the YouTube app, go to where the comments are. You swipe to the right and you can hype it. You get 1 to 3 a week. So if you could give us at least one of them, that would be amazing. We'd really appreciate that. And also a shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Shout out to Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. It will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company. Make sure you get the best claim possible. And shout out to SportsSpider.com. They are our partners. They aggregate sports content from all over the internet and organize them by your favorite teams, podcasts, articles, videos, all that stuff. And our stuff is pinned at the top. The link to sportspider.com is in the description of both the audio and video versions of this podcast. Again, thank you everybody for listening. Make sure to check out flyersnittygritty.com as always. We love you guys, and remember, always stay